September's almost over and 2022 is about to come to an end. We've got October, November, and December left, so what can we expect in terms of major camera announcements for the rest of the year? Details coming up, but first I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications so you're kept informed on the latest camera gear news and rumors. While it's possible to get announcements in November and December, most major camera announcements will take place from around the second week of September up until the end of October. So what can we expect from Pentax? Well, nothing. I've heard absolutely nothing from Pentax. They did do a strategic update, I think, back in March, but Pentax has been rather obscure. They've told us that they're going to be focusing on DSLRs and stills, but in terms of any new cameras, well, since 2021, we really haven't seen anything, and there's nothing rumored for October or even November and December. So nothing from Pentax, but what about OM Systems, formerly known as Olympus? Well, we are expecting the OM5. The OM5 was supposed to be announced in September. Now, since we initially got this rumor, we've heard nothing further since. Even sites like Digital Camera World have said there's nothing new under the sun for the OM5, and the OM5 is due to be a refresh or a successor to the Olympus OMD EM5 Mark III. So we can always look at the EM5 Mark III to have a good idea of what we can expect from the OM5. But in terms of leaks, well, there's nothing. It's just pure speculation and conjecture that we were supposed to get the OM5 in September. And well, according to my watch here, it's the 26th, so we still have 4 days left. And considering today's Monday, yeah, we certainly could get some sort of announcement dropped over the next couple of days, but we've heard nothing from the rumor mill, nothing in terms of speculation over what the specs might be, nothing in terms of date and time of an announcement, nothing at all. Now, I doubt we're going to get anything this month, maybe October. 4/3 rumors said we were getting a new Lumix camera coming out in 2022. That was many months ago, and well, we've had nothing since. Now there's an awful lot of speculation as to what a new camera could be. One is a refresh of the S series, the S1 and the S1R. It's been almost 2.5 years since those cameras were first announced, and it was back in March. 2.5 years. Now for the S1H, it's been 2 years because I believe that one was announced in November or October. But I personally think that it's more likely that we might get an announcement around March, and that would put it at around the 3-year mark. Now, when it comes to cameras like the S series, generally these cameras are refreshed closer to the 3 or 4-year mark, but they can certainly be refreshed a whole lot sooner, like at around the 2-year mark. And if we look at Nikon with the Z6 and the Z7, both Mark IIs, it only took a year to get a refresh of those two cameras. So what could the specs be of this new camera? What would it be? There's no mention whether it's a trustworthy source, whether it's been validated, just a source. So I'm not getting too excited about anything from Lumix. Now, as far as an S-series update, that would certainly be something to get excited about. Lumix is that company that produces one of the best video-focused stills hybrid cameras. They really are incredible. It's not hard to get excited about what Lumix puts into the cameras, but of course, the one thing that we're waiting to hear about, the progress on their phase detect autofocus system. They've stated, Yamane has stated, many have stated, managers have stated that they are working, they're researching a phase detect autofocus system or something just as good. And I think it was Yamane who said, on a scale of 0 to 100, they're around 80%. So 80% towards a phase detect autofocus system. Does that mean that the next Lumix camera that we get could have a phase detect autofocus system in it? I'm not really sure. But Lumix is definitely teasing us that a phase detect autofocus system is coming out. That's something that they're working on. And that's really good news because it can finally remove that one cloud hanging over them, indicating, because they are truly really good cameras, but a lot of people look at it and say, yeah, but you know, I can go to Sony or Canon or even Nikon who've got better autofocus systems. So why spend a premium on the S1, the S1H, or the S1R when I can go to a system that is just as good in all features but has a better autofocus system? And when you're looking at all the cameras coming out on the market these days, some really incredible cameras, the Z6, Z7, the Z9, the Canon R5, the R6, the Sony A7R5. Oh, did I just give away something about Sony? Sony's coming up shortly. Sony's got a lot of great cameras out there. Sony was one of the leaders in the mirrorless space. Back many, many years ago, a lot of pundits were making fun of Sony for their terrible mirrorless cameras. I'm not making fun of Sony anymore. They're the leader in this space, and I believe up until this year right now, Sony leads worldwide sales of mirrorless cameras. Not mirrorless and DSLRs combined. No, that's still Canon with about 48% market share. But Sony's doing very well with around 20%, about the same point that Nikon is, depending on who you follow. Nikon's in second, Sony's in third, or they're in a close tie, or Nikon's in third and Sony's in second. But Lumix, I would really love to see an accurate phase detect autofocus system. And because they've made us wait so very, very long, when they do come out with a phase detect autofocus system, it's got to be great right out of the gate. It's got to be as good as Sony or Canon. It has to be, because just imagine they come out with a phase detect autofocus system and it's not very accurate, they're going to lose anybody there that's been waiting and hoping that Lumix does deliver a phase detect autofocus system. It has to be accurate. So that's why I'm really kind of poo-pooing any major announcement this October, unless they've got that phase detect autofocus system licked. And back, what was it, around April? I think it was April. A manager at Lumix, or Panasonic Lumix, was talking, and I can't remember, is it Sean? No, he was with Sean in a live stream, but more or less, I can't remember his name, but he came forward and said, look, we understand that you want it. We were focusing on all these other things, such as video resolutions, frame rates, and all this other great stuff. And we just didn't prioritize a phase detect autofocus system or some equivalent system any higher. He says, we are researching it, we're working on it. And then Yamane-san, Yosuke Yamane-san, came out and said, not too long ago in an interview, yes, you know what, we are researching it. And yes, we're probably 80% towards getting to a point that we're happy with, rather than 20%. He was using his hands like this to indicate 0%, 100%, and we're about here. And the person interviewing him said, so that sounds like 80%. Yamane-san laughed. Obviously, they can't give away too much of what they're working on. That's pretty standard. But if they've got it licked somehow between when the GH6 was being worked on to now, and keep in mind the GH6, they've been working on that since basically the GH4. So changing the ship there would have been difficult. And that's why I really wish they had done this with the S1, the very first S1, and the S1R, and then they would have been set up. So we'll just have to wait and see. The S5, I really don't expect to see a Mark II at this point. Again, that one hasn't been out for very long, but the S series is what I consider to be next. I mean, they could come out with a camera that sits below the S5, that's a more affordable, low cost, that's, well, can compete with the Canon EOS RP. The only full-frame mirrorless camera that I know that sells on a regular price for $999 and goes on sale for $899. Nikon rumors, the leader in rumors, all things Nikon, says that we're getting one more camera in 2022. Now, if you've been following this channel for some time, and if you haven't, I really recommend subscribing and choosing all notifications, because it's been a very interesting ride for Nikon. We got the Nikon Z9 last year, and it's a truly amazing camera, but there's been an awful lot of rumors about the Nikon Z8, and where we're sitting at right now in September is that the Nikon Z8 is a camera that is going to be coming out. Now, some have speculated that maybe instead of getting the Z8, we're going to get the Z6 Mark III and the Z7 Mark III. And the Z6 is going to be a video powerhouse delivering 8K, and the Z7 is going to be a stills powerhouse, basically taking the capabilities that you see in a camera like the Canon EOS R5 and putting them onto both of those cameras. Others are saying that essentially we're going to get a mini Nikon Z9, just like the Canon EOS R5 is a mini R3 or 1DX Mark III, or a mini soon-to-be Canon EOS R1. But you see, Nikon rumors have said that, you know, if we are getting a Z8, it's not happening here in 2022. So what's all the kerfuffle about? Well, a Twitter, How to Fly, has come out and said that we were getting the Nikon Z8 in August. Well, August came and went, and then they updated in mid-August saying that, okay, well, hold on a minute here. We're still getting the Nikon Z8. It's going to come out by the end of October at the very latest. Okay, no rumored specifications, a quasi-leaked image of the Z8, which I could have done a better job of faking, so it doesn't give us, with iPhones that can produce 48 megapixel images, when you show me a really blurry, low detail photo of a leaked camera, I'm just not buying it. So the Nikon Z8 is a very real possibility, but most likely in 2023. As is the Nikon Z6 Mark III and the Nikon Z7 Mark III. Keep in mind, The Z6 Mark II and Z7 Mark II came out just a year ago. And they were minor updates over the original Z6 Mark I and Z7 Mark I. So to get a Z6 or Z7 at this point, to me, would be a little bit premature. But the Z8, well, in terms of answering the Canon EOS R5, Nikon doesn't really have a camera that does that, although you can purchase the Z6 and the Z7, and you're pretty close. But I think Nikon is missing a Z or a Canon EOS R5 type camera, which would be a mini, in my view, Nikon Z9. But what else? Well, there's been a few other rumored Nikon cameras like a Nikon Z4, and I think that's an EVF type camera. Again, another camera that's designed to compete against the Canon EOS R5. Like I said, you can't find any other cameras out there in a full frame by Sony, Nikon, or anybody else that has a full frame mirrorless camera that is priced under $1,000. So there's definitely room for that. And the Canon EOS RP is it's been selling very well for a camera that doesn't have really great video specifications, that has a pretty bad rolling shutter. It's pretty slow. It doesn't have face detect autofocus, and I believe 4K 30. I think it's just contrast detect. There's a lot of compromises, and it's using some technology from the 5D Mark IV. But the RP, if you're a stills photographer, it offers an awful lot of promise with some good video. And we're going to talk about Canon in just a little bit. We're going to talk about a refresh of the Canon EOS RP. But according to Nikon rumors, we're only supposed to be getting one camera here in 2022, in the late part of 2022. So we'll just have to wait another 30 days or so to find out what that could be. Look what Nikon did in October 27th of last year. They stunned us. Well, they teased us for 3 or 4 weeks, and then they stunned us with the Nikon Z9, a camera that I was just absolutely gushing over. So I'm really looking forward to what else Nikon might have in store for us. Last but certainly not least is Canon. So there's an awful lot of rumored cameras due out for Canon. And a lot of these cameras were due to come out in 2020 or 2021 and even here in 2022. So let's first of all talk about the camera that I was just talking about when we covered Sony, and that's the Canon EOS RP. This camera has sold very, very well, but it hasn't aged very well. Whenever anybody asks me, should I get the Canon EOS RP over some other camera, I first ask, are you shooting video or stills? And if they're shooting video, I'll almost always recommend against the Canon EOS RP. We are expected to get a refresh of that camera, the Canon EOS RP Mark II, most likely to be called the R8 or the R9. Now, it was initially planned for this year, but Canon rumors has since come out saying that the Canon EOS RP, as well as a camera that sits between the Canon EOS RP and the R6, also called the EOS R Mark II. Don't expect those cameras for 6 months. That was a couple of months ago. So with 3 months left, that's another, so maybe January announcement. So we're looking at first quarter of 2023, according to Canon rumors. So what are we expected to get from Canon for October? Well, Canon rumors has said that the Canon R100, a camera priced between around $499 and $599, an EVF-less camera, is due to be announced this coming month in October. It's going to be a pretty affordable camera. It's going to aim right around that kind of SL2, SL3 or low-end Rebel series. And I really like the Rebel T8i, but that was a much more expensive camera. I think that's around $700 to $800. The SL2 and the SL3 are right around that $500 to $600 range, but are a little bit cheaper now. You can get them for a little bit less. So that camera is due to come out. We have no specifications whatsoever. It's easy to speculate, but I'm not going to speculate in this video. So the R100 is due to come out in October. What about a Canon EOS R5 high megapixel version or a high megapixel camera? Well, here's an interesting thought. The Canon EOS R1 is a camera that we know is coming. There's plenty that's been leaked upon it in terms of its progress, when we can expect it. The latest from Canon rumors on the R1 is that it's supposed to be, well, it's going to be teased around March, April, May, in spring, with an actual announcement in the second half. We don't know if it's going to be late second half, whether it's going to be July, but we're going to start getting teased in the spring. That means we could start getting leaked specifications as early as January. A development announcement for the R1, highly unlikely. So going back now to the R5 high megapixel camera, what some are speculating is that the Canon EOS R1 could basically condense the Canon EOS R1 and a high megapixel camera into a single unit. I didn't believe this to be possible. It didn't make sense to me because the R1 is, or the 1 series, is always aimed at those that are looking at shooting professional level where they need high-speed continuous without a rolling shutter, whether that's sports, whether it's fashion, any place where you need to shoot fast, high quality, that's where the 1 series comes in. Once you start to go north of 60 megapixels, and yes, that's the latest from Canon rumors that they expect that the R1 will be at least 60 megapixels, well, you start to, well, you need to move a lot of data very fast, collect it from the sensor very fast, process it through the image processors, or image processor. We could get 1 or 2. And if we look at 1 series cameras, sometimes we get 1, sometimes we get 2. And when the Digic X came out in the 1DX Mark III, we've seen that in pretty well every other camera since, including the very much low-priced Canon EOS R10, which came out at $979, but now is on sale for $1,099. So it's very much possible we could get multiple image processors, but then it's moving that through the system. It's having a very, very fast buffer, like an NVMe with multiple chips, and then, of course, having dual CF Express Type B card slots. So I'm not saying it isn't possible. It certainly is very possible. They can move away from holding down that shutter button where you can shoot unlimited. Maybe it can limit it to several second bursts at 20, 30, or even 40 frames per second, whether you're shooting full sensor or half the sensor. We've had rumors in the past saying that the R1 was going to be 85 megapixels. I kind of didn't believe that. Because it was too high. Now we're saying 60 or above. And there was a rumor of a high megapixel camera from Sony and Canon, both being north of 100 megapixels. When it comes to the R1, we have absolutely zero specifications. All we have is bold statements from people that are supposed to be right close to Canon. These are known, validated sources from Canon Rumors, which has a very good track record, stating that the Canon EOS R1 is going to be the master of everything. And that's a very bold statement. And what we're hearing is that it's not only going to match, at the very least, the Sony Alpha 1 and the Nikon Z9, but it's going to clobber it in some cases. So I have no idea what to expect. I don't want to speculate too much because you just end up looking silly and foolish. We are expecting the Canon EOS R1 to come in 2023. We might get a development announcement in October or November. The 1DX Mark III, which was announced in January of 2020, followed with a we had a development announcement in October, so we waited about 3.5 months. So if we're getting the announcement of the R1 in the second half, whether it's late or early, it's highly unlikely that we'll get any development announcement here in 2022. But I wouldn't be surprised if the leaks start furiously at the end of January 2023. So that kind of wraps up what we can expect to see. I'm really disappointed. We haven't had too much. We had the DJI and we had the GoPro. Couldn't remember the name for a minute. GoPro, 2 fast action cameras that are designed to go anywhere underwater. They're really rugged cameras. But we really haven't had too much. And of course, Angelbird just announced some new SD cards, V60 and V90 cards, the fastest V90 cards out there with a minimum sustained write speed of, what was it, 260 megabytes per second? Or was it 280? No, 260 megabytes per second. Maximum sustained read was 300 megabytes per second. So really, really fast. But in terms of major cameras, September's been a bust. I'm sensing that October is going to be a bust too. We might get one camera from Canon, and it's not going to be one of those truly exciting cameras. We might get one camera from Nikon, but yeah, it's really hard to say. I can't believe that I almost forgot Sony. Actually, I didn't forget Sony. In my notes, I did Nikon, Sony, and then Canon, but without my glasses on, when I looked down at the sheet between takes, I didn't see Sony. I went right to Canon. So let's go and cover off Sony. Now, Sony, I think, potentially is going to be the one camera company that's going to provide us with the most exciting cameras. We're due to get not 1, not 2, but 3 possible new cameras here in October. One of the most anticipated cameras is the Sony A7R5, a successor to the A7R4, which came out in October of 2019. I'm having trouble believing the leaked specifications. I put out this video not too long ago, I think it was last week, talking about the capabilities and some of the bizarre capabilities, well, not bizarre, some of the amazing capabilities that we're supposed to be seeing in this new camera. The A7R5 is 9.6K oversampled 8K, oversampled 4K. Now, as far as 1080, they say oversampled, but they don't say full sensor width. It's going to be capable of anywhere from 5 to 10 frames per second. That really depends on whether it's going to get the same 61 megapixel sensor, which is what the leaked specification said, or if it's going to get somewhere around 95 megapixels or 100 megapixels, because again, Sony's supposed to be releasing a 100 plus megapixel camera as well. And if that's the case, it would be 5 megapixels. Would the Sony a7R5 be that new high megapixel sensor or censored camera from Sony? It's really hard to say, but we're supposed to get an announcement within October, and that's just within 30 days away. The other camera we're supposed to be getting is an update to the A9, the A9 Mark III. Now this camera to me I've been confused by it a little bit since the Alpha 1 came out. Some have speculated that, well, Sony doesn't care about beating the Alpha 1. They're going to come out with really great specs for the A9 Mark III, and that's certainly the case. But again, this is a stills-focused camera. It's not going to have the same high resolution as the Sony a7R5. So that one's also supposed to be coming out in October. And Sony, like others, is rumored to be coming out with a low-cost alternative or competitor to the Canon EOS RP. Like I mentioned previously, the Canon EOS RP sells for between $899 on sale to $999 and is the cheapest entry-level full-frame mirrorless camera out there. So I know Sony's more than capable of doing that. The question is, what kind of capabilities would they feed that camera? Or are they just going to focus on the A9 Mark III and the a7R5? And are they going to do what some people are rumored that Canon is going to do? And instead of coming out with a high megapixel camera outside of the A9 Mark III, or the a7R5, they're going to just look at that a7R5, and that's going to be the high megapixel censored camera. It's certainly possible. We'll just have to wait and see. But if you want to stay up to date on all the latest camera news and rumors, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. First of all, it really does help me. The more my subscriber count goes up, it doesn't help me in terms of income, but when companies are looking at getting me to review their products, especially bigger companies like Canon and Panasonic, the more subscribers I have, the more likely they are to reach out to me and ask me if I want to review their products. So please go ahead and subscribe. But also, if you want to stay up to date on the latest camera news and rumors, when you subscribe, make sure you make sure you hit all notifications, because by hitting all notifications, as soon as I publish a new video like this one here, you'll get notified, so that way you can stay up to date on the latest camera news and rumors. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.